Hello, welcome to another weekly video. Today I'm going to be talking about open doors. Um, and I think there could be a lot of confusion in it. When I look at my life, I know I've been really confused by what path God wants me to go on and what path I actually take, things like that. And something that comes up when you're on a path with God is like open doors. Excuse me. I don't know how much you may have heard about um, being a Christian or following God, but a lot of times you'll hear people talk about how God opens doors for you. And sometimes you may hear people say that God opens doors, that no man can open and things like that. Um, but I feel like there's a lot of gray area in that that people don't tend to understand. Sorry, I've got a chest cold and I may cough a little bit, but I just wanted to let you know. Excuse me. So, as far as open doors, I would say that God does open doors that I guess if you want to say no man can open. Um, Actually, I wouldn't say that no man can open it. Um, I guess you could kind of look at it like it could feel, I don't even know if the right word is supernatural. It could feel kind of impossible when God opens a door sometimes. But when you see the situation, it'll kind of make sense to you in the moment, how everything came together. But um, what I really wanted to talk about more was like how it could be confusing if God opens a door that He may not want you to go down, and I've been just trying to struggle with that this week myself, trying to understand it. So really, this applies to me mostly in the job direction. Um, I've just had so much confusion in that area because, I mean, I guess it's just more struggle too. When I look at the things that I've been through, excuse me, there's so many things I don't seem to understand. Like I've gotten degrees in certain areas, and I'll get really excited about certain jobs, and I've even gone to interview for jobs that I feel like are a perfect fit for me, but I don't get it. And sometimes I don't get an interview, um, and sometimes I'll be on the job and something will go wrong. I might get fired, for example. And I mean, some of that has to do with some of the the circumstances I'm in. Like, you know, if I show up on the job and I don't do a good job, it makes sense that I'm fired. But um, there's been things that I felt like um, I got fired for, and it didn't make sense to me. But of course, I'm sure if I talked to my supervisors, maybe they would tell me more. But you just don't get a whole lot of information sometimes. But excuse me. Anyway, um, what I feel like with a lot of the jobs that I've gone into is they tend to be like the jobs that I actually get tend to be jobs that I don't actually want. And that's why I don't understand when I say God opens the door. I mean, I've always looked at it like God um, opens a door when you go into any opportunity. Like um, if you get a job, I always looked at it like God was opening a door, but it wouldn't be long before something would go wrong in the job. So I couldn't understand why I was getting these jobs so easily, and then something wouldn't work out. So, for example, I applied for a job at a grocery store one time, um, and I mean honestly, before I even got to the job, I wasn't sure how I was going to do it because I have a some physical problems, and I didn't think that I could. But so once I got in it, I had this mindset that like, oh well, if God lets me get the job, then it must be somewhere He wants me to work and stay. But when I got into the job, I found out I couldn't handle the stress, and I had to quit within a couple weeks. And this has happened to me many, many times, and I just didn't understand why God was like letting me get the job. Um, and that just happened to be one that I actually did want. But there's been many jobs that I got that I actually didn't want necessarily because, well, I'll just try to explain. Like when I got a job as a paralegal, I was reading and researching, and they started talking about how it just wasn't it sometimes it's not something that you could just jump into once you get out of school. You kind of have to do your time in a smaller position like secretary, which when I was looking around for jobs that actually did kind of apply, I ended up seeing a lot more jobs of like where you start out working as a secretary and then you move up to paralegal. And and some of them actually did say, you know, oh, if you work as a secretary here for a while, you will be able to be the paralegal here over time. But you know, again, uh, things didn't work out with some of that. But I just use that example to show how like I didn't actually want a secretary job, but I was trying to take it to get to the job that I wanted. And I think a lot of people may have to do something like that in their career. So that's kind of where I was going with it. But you know, time after time, things didn't work out. So so that kind of thing happened again to me recently. At home, me and my husband were kind of struggling financially, so I thought, well, let me just look into the job direction again, and I was looking at two different jobs. Um, one was a security job that I actually did want, and one was a job that I didn't necessarily want, but um, I didn't know exactly what it was going to be. I think that was part of the problem. You know, in security particularly, it doesn't really explain what you're going to be doing. Um, so once I found out what it was, I realized that wasn't what I wanted to do. And um, but of course, the one that I didn't want, the security job I didn't want, you know, I get an interview, I get hired, um, and they're talking about putting me into training and everything, and you know, it's just everything just flows, you know, um and I try to look at it like, or I was looking at it like, well, um only God could make it flow the way that it's flowing. So it was confusing to me why I actually started to feel like it wasn't right after everything was flowing. It starts to feel like it's not the right thing. Things start coming up that like don't necessarily make sense to um put ourselves into a financial situation like the training is 45 minutes away and it's 3 days. And now we're talking about putting a lot of money up front into gas and things like that before even getting a paycheck. And then of course, you know, once I find out what the job is, I could tell I don't really want to do the job. And unfortunately, it just wasn't clear enough when I was researching it, what it was. So so I remember thinking, you know, why would God open this door? And in the past, there have been times where I looked at it like, well, God's opening this door. I just need to push through it anyway. Well, this time I didn't really feel that way. Um, Mostly because like it was too much to sacrifice to try to keep going into it. So I called and said I couldn't take the job. But my point is like um it's just not clear to me why it's flowing and then it's not. But I try to look at it more like I've had a lot of experience in certain areas, and um I kind of take over at a certain point and try to figure out things myself, and that's kind of a separate thing from God. Now don't get me wrong, I mean there's always things to learn. I think that's part of the um the process. Of course God wants you to learn something. Maybe that's why it flows and then it doesn't, or you're supposed to fine tune more with like what feels like it's in line with God and what feels like it's not. And I don't understand if there's certain specifics. I mean, um, maybe God is in it up to a certain point, or who knows what's going on behind the scenes um of the training, for example. I mean, maybe there's something wrong with that. I mean, there's a lot of like variables that you don't really know what's going on, but I try to look at it more like I know based on my experience that it's easy to get into certain jobs because of just what I've been through. I mean, I know um security companies, they tend to take everybody, um well, depending on what it is. Uh and I just happen to know that kind of information, and knowing that, I think I kind of take over from God. Now, of course, there's still confusion, like why does it flow, but I think we can all make our own paths right the second that we're not actually supposed to make. Like, I mean, I'm married, but I could probably um go on a dating website right now and find all kinds of guys to message me or stuff like that. But that doesn't mean that's what's supposed to happen. And it doesn't necessarily mean that that's God's path for you. But it can flow if that's the way you want to go. Um, and again, I guess it really comes down to just trying to learn something. Um, but you know, um, I do think there's a an area in there where we take over. God does have a certain path for us. He probably doesn't want me to go on a dating site and try to find somebody when I'm married, but that doesn't mean that I can't make it happen. I mean, there's just so many scenarios where I think, you know, Satan may be involved versus God, and yes, he may allow something, but Satan makes things very easy too. So, um, I guess that's kind of where I stand with it. I still don't fully understand all of it, but I think that that's the best grasp I have on it right now. It could be really frustrating in the moment, wondering, well, is this God? Is it not? I still don't quite understand why he makes things, well, if it's him, if why is he making things flow to a certain point, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere you'll start getting these feelings like, oh, well, that doesn't make sense though. Um, you'll start feeling like, well, like I said, this job um, starts asking me to do things that I don't feel like make sense for me, you know. And in the past, I do recall that like there were certain jobs where I was asked to do things that I probably shouldn't have done, and I did them anyway. And I think the point is definitely don't push through those things. I mean, you have to be aware what kind of sacrifices you can make at the time. But anyway, I think that kind of wraps things up. So I'm gonna leave it there, and thank you for watching.